There's an invisible prison you carry around every day, and the bars are made of the expectations of people who might not even care about you. Carl Jung realized this almost a century ago, and what he discovered can completely change the way you view your relationships, your choices, and even who you really are. But before we get to the content, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and activate the bell so you don't miss future content. This really helps the channel reach more people. Thank you very much. Back to the video. Chapter 1. Have you ever noticed how some people live in a constant state of justification? They explain why they left work early, why they didn't go to the party, why they're tired, why they changed their minds. It seems polite, right? It seems considerate. But Jung would say that this is something else, something much darker. He called it loss of internal authority, and according to him, this compulsive need to explain himself is not kindness. It's a symptom that you have stopped living your own life, and he began to play a role in the lives of others. Think about it. How many times today did you shape what you were going to say based on what the other person would think? How many times have you lied, even if it was a small lie, just to avoid conflict? How many times have you felt something strong inside, but hid it with a smile because it wasn't the right time? This is not healthy coexistence. This is silent self-sabotage. And the worst part, we normalize it. We think it's part of it, that it's just how it is, that everyone does it. But Jung disagreed. To him, this behavior is the opposite of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. And while you live asking for permission to exist, you will never be free. But calm down. This is just the beginning. Because what Jung discovered goes far beyond just stop caring about what other people think. There's a deep psychological structure behind it, a wound most people carry from childhood. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Chapter 2. The psychological wound. Where does this need come from? Let's get straight to the point. This compulsion to constantly explain oneself doesn't come out of nowhere. It has roots, and usually the roots lie in childhood. Jung realized that many people grow up in environments where what they feel is constantly invalidated. You know that child who cries and hears, "Stop being so dramatic," or the one who gets angry and hears, "You're exaggerating," or even the one who feels fear and is ridiculed for it. These children learn a brutal lesson. What I feel is only valid if the other person approves, and then the cycle begins. They begin to justify every emotion, every reaction, every choice, because deep down they believe they need to convince others that they have the right to feel what they feel. And that doesn't go away when we grow up. On the contrary, it becomes an automatic pattern. You become an adult, but you still act like you need someone's approval to validate your own experience. Jung called this disconnection from the self. The self for him is the center of psychic totality. It's who you really are when no one is looking. But when you spend your whole life molding yourself to fit other people's expectations, you lose contact with that center. And then the ego, which should just be a mediator between you and the world, becomes a servant of external acceptance. He no longer acts based on what is true for you. He acts based on what will keep you safe. I accept, dear. And the price of this? You stop being you. Let me give you an example. Think of a person who always says yes when they really mean no. She accepts the invitation to go out, but doesn't want to go. She's willing to do a favor, but she's exhausted. She agrees with the group's opinion, but thinks differently. Why? Because she's afraid of disappointing, afraid of being seen as selfish, afraid of being excluded. So what does she do? She justifies. I can't go because I have a headache. But it's not a headache. It's just that she doesn't want to. But she can't just say, "I don't want to," because that would be exposing the truth, and the truth in her mind is not acceptable. So she lies to herself and to others. And this, according to Jung, is a form of self-betrayal. Every time you shape your truth to fit someone else's expectations, you betray a part of yourself. And this betrayal accumulates, day after day, month after month, year after year, until one day you wake up and you don't know who you are anymore, because you spent so much time being what others wanted. who forgot who you were before this. And this is where things get really heavy, because this betrayal does not go unpunished. It has consequences, and Jung knew exactly what they were. Chapter 3. The Consequences of Self-Betrayal. Jung said something that bothers a lot of people. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Translating, when you don't face the pain of being who you are, you develop symptoms, chronic anxiety, existential crises, feelings of emptiness, depression with no apparent cause. And why? Because the psyche does not accept betrayal. She screams, she warns, she demands, and if you don't listen, she gets sick. Think about it. How many times have you felt that inexplicable anguish, that tightness in your chest that doesn't make sense, that feeling that something is wrong but you don't know what? Jung would say this is your soul trying to wake you up, trying to tell you you're not living your life, you're living the life that others approve of. And this is unbearable for the unconscious, because the unconscious does not lie. He knows when you're cheating on yourself, and he's going to charge you, one way or another. Now comes the part that most people don't want to hear. As long as you keep explaining yourself compulsively, you will never have inner freedom. Because every justification is a subtle form of submission. It's as if every time you explain, you say, I can only exist if you allow it. And that's giving up your psychological sovereignty. Jung believed that the greatest challenge of adult life is precisely this: develop internal authority. But what does this mean in practice? It means you stop needing external validation to know that what you feel is real. It means you trust your own experience even if no one else understands. It means you act based on what is true for you, not what is comfortable for others. And that, I'll tell you, is rare. Because most people never develop that authority. They spend their entire lives outsourcing their self-esteem, depending on the other person's gaze to know if they are enough. And then that vicious cycle begins. You explain yourself, seek approval, don't receive it, or you receive it but it's never enough. Feel insecure, explain yourself again. And so you go, stuck in an endless loop of emotional begging. But what if you stopped? What if you just stopped justifying yourself? What would happen? That's exactly what we're going to explore now. Because when you stop explaining yourself, something changes radically. Chapter 4. Silence as Power. There is one thing that Jung understood very well. Silence is not absence, it is presence. When you stop justifying yourself, you're not being rude, you are being whole. And that's scary. Because the people around you were used to your insecurity. They knew they could question you, judge you, demand things from you, and you would give in. He would explain, he would apologize, he would give in. But when do you stop doing that? When do you just say no and not justify it? When do you change your mind and don't ask permission? When you feel something and don't rationalize it, you break the game. And a lot of people don't like that. Do you know why? Why emotional manipulation only works when there is visible vulnerability. When you explain yourself too much, you show your cards. You reveal your insecurities, your weaknesses, your emotional anchors. And manipulative people, consciously or unconsciously, use this against you. They make you feel guilty, they make you doubt, they make you backtrack. But when do you develop internal authority? When you simply and without having to convince anyone, you become inaccessible to this kind of control. And look, that's not arrogance. It is self-preservation. It's you finally treating your own truth with the respect it deserves. Imagine the following situation. Someone invites you to something. You don't want to go. The old version of you would say, "Oh, I won't be able to do it because I have a headache, I have to work, my mother needs me." The version that developed internal authority says, "I won't be able to, but thanks for the invitation." Point, no justification, no drama, no guilt. And guess what? The person on the other side will either respect, or it will show that he never really respected you. And then you discover who was on your side out of real affection, and who was there because you were easy to control. Jung said that the process of individuation demands ruptures, and these breakups aren't always with bad people. Sometimes it's with people who just can't handle their evolution. People who prefer you small, predictable, controllable. And when you grow up, they move away, and that's okay because you're not here to be a supporting character in anyone's life. But there is an important detail here. Stopping explaining yourself isn't a trick. It's not a communication technique. It is a change of internal axis, and that requires something that most people are not willing to do. Chapter 5. Psychological integrity. Internal authority does not arise overnight. It builds itself. And the first step is brutal. You need to stop cheating on yourself. And look, this is harder than it looks. Because betrayal doesn't just happen in big decisions. It happens in small daily gestures, when you laugh at something you don't find funny, when you agree with something you don't believe in, when you silence something true to keep the peace. Every time you do this, you give up a piece of yourself, and over time, these pieces accumulate until you look in the mirror and no longer recognize who's there. Jung called this fragmentation of the self, and the only way to reverse this is through integration. Integration for Jung is the process of bringing together all the parts of yourself that have been rejected, hidden, or denied. It's looking at your anger and not pretending it doesn't exist. It's feeling your sadness without turning it into something productive. It's accepting your ambition without disguising it as humility. It's recognizing your limits without shame. It is to be whole. Even if it means being uncomfortable. Even if it means letting someone down. Even if it means being alone for a while. Because solitude is better than fake company, and Jung knew it. He said, "Loneliness doesn't come from not having people around you. It comes from not being able to communicate what's important to you." And when you spend your whole life explaining yourself, justifying yourself, shaping yourself, you never communicate what's important. You communicate what is acceptable. And that's not intimacy. It's performance. So here's the twist. When you finally stop explaining yourself, when you allow yourself to be whole, even imperfect, something changes not only inside you, but around you too. Chapter 6. The world responds differently. There's a fascinating thing that happens when you develop internal authority. People start treating you differently. And not because you changed the way you speak, but why did you change your energy frequency? Jung understood that the psyche emits signals. These are not verbal signals, they are subtle, unconscious signals, and people pick up on these signals without even realizing it. When you live justifying yourself, you emit insecurity. And insecurity attracts control, manipulation, disrespect. But when do you stop explaining yourself? When you simply and without asking permission. You emit something completely different, integrity. And integrity is not negotiable. She doesn't ask. She doesn't beg. It simply exists. And that carries weight. It has presence, has authority. Think of someone you know who never makes excuses. That when you say no, you mean no. That when you decide something, you don't dwell on it. That doesn't apologize for existing. What does it feel like? Security, trust, respect. Not because she's aggressive, but because she's consistent. And coherence is magnetic. It commands respect. It eliminates emotional games. It sets boundaries without fighting. Jung said that integrated people don't convince. They communicate. They don't try to prove anything. They just express. And the people around or resonate with it. Or they move away. And both scenarios are positive. Because you don't want anyone who needs to be convinced of your humanity. But there is one last thing that needs to be said. Something that Jung made clear and that many people ignore. Chapter 7. The Price of Freedom. I'll be direct. Stopping pleasing everyone has a cost. And the cost is this. You will disappoint people. You will be misunderstood. You will lose connections that seemed solid. You'll be called selfish, cold, arrogant. And do you know why? Because the people who benefited from your submission will feel the change. And they will resist. They will try to bring you back to your usual place. They will test you. They will question you. They will demand things from you. And that's when you'll find out what you're made of. Because inner authority isn't about never feeling fear. It's about act even when afraid. It's about holding your truth even when everything inside you screams to give in. It's about accepting the discomfort of not being understood and still remain whole. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are." But he never said it would be easy. He said he would be necessary, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is to live a life that is not yours. It is to die without ever having truly existed, and this is a silent tragedy. But there is something that few people realize. When you stop pleasing everyone, you don't become lonely, you become selective. And then, paradoxically, their relationships become deeper, because you stop attracting people who want to control you and start attracting people who respect you, not for its performance but by its essence. So here's the cold, hard truth. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need to convince anyone that your emotions are valid. You don't need to justify your choices, your limits, your existence. Jung spent his entire life studying this, and his conclusion was simple yet devastating. As long as you live for others, you will never live. And look, I know this is scary, because the idea of disappointing people, of being misunderstood, of being alone, it hurts. But you know what hurts the most? Reaching 60, 70 years old and realize that you were never you, that you were just a reflection of other people's expectations, that you spent your whole life asking for permission to exist and never received. Because the truth is this, no one will give you permission. You need to take it. And it starts when you stop explaining yourself, when you trust your truth even if no one understands, when you act with integrity even if it costs you, and when you finally understand that your life is not a negotiation, it's a statement. If this video confronted you, if it made you think, if it stirred something inside you, I invite you again to subscribe to the channel, because we will continue exploring these deep philosophical ideas without filter. And now, I leave you with a question. What explanation do you give every day? And that deep down you know you shouldn't give anymore. Think about it, because the answer can change everything. If you liked this video, I invite you to watch the one that's currently showing on your screen. I'm sure it can help you too. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.